Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Tester's Table. I'm so excited to welcome my friends Rachel and Paul. And today we're going to talk a bit about kind of our backgrounds and how we wound up in testing and what we think the skills are for the future. So before we get started, Rachel, could you just give us a real quick introduction? Nice. Thank you. And Paul,
What
how
did you
about
do
you?
before?
We're not there yet, Paul.
Oh, we're not there yet? Oh, okay. My name's Paul Holland. I've been testing software for 29 years because I'm really old. I currently work as a principal consultant for Plato testing in Canada, even though I live in Florida. And my current contract, which I've been for the last year and a half pretty much, is at Saskatchewan Government Insurance.
Yeah, I think that you being in Florida, but working for a company in Canada gives us a good entryway into sharing a little bit of your backstory.
I was born in England, moved to Canada when I was 2, so I consider myself Canadian. Moved to the US in 2014 and near New York and moved down here in 2020 because New York was a bad place to be in 2020. I graduated a very long time ago with a computer science degree in 1987. I worked for 3.5 years at Xerox as a laser printer analyst. Then I joined the military as a helicopter pilot, and I flew Sea-King helicopters for 5 years. Then I got out of the military and I got a job as a software tester at a company in Ottawa, Canada called Newbridge. Ended up working at that company, which got bought by Alcatel and then merged with Alcatel-Lucent, and after I left is now bought by Nokia. But I worked there for 17 years testing telecommunication switches. And then during that time, I met James Bach and Michael Bolton, and I became a advocate of rapid software testing. And probably 7 years after I first met James, I was anointed as the first non-James and Michael teacher of rapid software testing. So that's mostly what I've done in a nutshell.
Something that always cracks me up about you, Paul, is that it's easy to forget that you're a Canadian until you say things like out or about. But you're also the most American Canadian I've ever met.
Meaning I'm not polite? You got to remember, I was born in England, so I have a very dry, British, sarcastic sense of humor.
It's true. Well, Rachel, how about you? Do you want to share a little bit of your background?
Sure. Let's see. I don't know where to start. I
started where I was born. Sorry.
Sure. Where I grew up will become relevant, but not quite yet.
Excellent.
My undergraduate degrees are in math and music. I studied double bass performance, and theoretically, I was never very good, but I loved music and still do music. And then I went to law school and have a degree from the University of Kansas. Practiced law for 4 years, hated almost every minute of it. It was the worst. And then, so I just quit. Then founded a startup with my partner and a friend of ours. And that didn't get off the ground, but I was doing everything but the actual development for it. So I was doing the finances and the customer outreach and the marketing and the testing, and loved the testing. So when the startup didn't succeed and it was time for a paycheck, I talked my way into a testing job, and have loved it ever since. I got connected to people through CAST, the Conference of the Association for Software Testing, and haven't looked back and never want to leave testing. This is my career.
I love that there's overlaps in all of our stories in interesting ways, but also real departures from each other's stories at the same time, because my background, I started doing like terrible customer service jobs because I didn't have a degree. But I wound up working for a startup-ish company. They were kind of like slightly over the startup phase. And I was working in their help desk. It was the best customer service job I ever had. And they said, "Hey, you're pretty good at help desk, but we're worried you're going to get bored and leave us." So where am I going to go? This is the best job I've ever had. It's the most money I've ever made. But they let me try testing, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do forever. And I did take that real brief departure into product and quickly turned around and said, nope, back to testing, because it's what I like most. But I find it interesting that both of you started your careers with degrees, and I didn't start mine with a degree. I didn't get my degree until 12 years into my career, maybe. Long time in. But it's always interesting to hear where everyone started, especially when we're talking about things like skills. So I'm really curious, and either of you can jump in. What do you think were the skills from your kind of like former life, what you did before testing, that had the biggest impact on you in your testing career, either like when you started or even now?
Probably just problem solving. When something isn't working the way I think it should be. And this doesn't just apply to software testing. It's actually a question that I try to ask subtly in interviews. If you walk into a restroom and the toilet's running, what do you do? And the number of people who just leave it is really high. And I take the lid on, like wiggling the handle and trying to stop it. That's good enough. You're trying to do something. You're trying to fix it. What I do is I take the top off the lid and I try to actually really fix it. I'm not a plumber, but I can fix basic stuff. And I fixed tons of public toilets because having a toilet running is wasteful, and it's just something that I can probably fix. If I'm in a big, huge hurry, I won't. But just if something's wrong, do something to make it less wrong. And that's a mentality that really helps testers a lot, because that's one of the things that we're doing by finding defects and raising them. We're trying to take something that's wrong and we're doing something to make it less wrong. And the better you are at that in all aspects of your life, I have found with the testers that I've hired and in my own testing experience, you end up being better at it if you truly care about making things around you better. So that's on top of the obvious ones, like I can communicate fairly well verbally and in a written form, but okay, you kind of need that for almost every job. So, but yeah, just the straight critical thinking and knowing things can be different and trying to fix them and make them better.
Rachel, what about you?
So the analytical thinking from math and law, oddly, I can read lots of technical documentation without being bored. So being able to kind of parse through things and understand them and figure out where we're going wrong. I've read a lot of the terms and agreements that we send out to our customers and have corrected them. Like, this is not what our software does. So that plus the creative side from music, of being able to think of different ways to get to the same endpoint. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Reading technical documentation is likely the weakest thing in my repertoire. So we each have our own different superpowers. We'll reference technical documents. The last time I read a requirements document, and remember, I've been doing this 30 years, so I know requirements documents don't necessarily exist, but let's say Jira story collection. The last time I read an entire epic, all of the stories, or an entire requirements document is never. I have never, ever done that.
Oh,
Never,
okay.
Not even once. I get an understanding from talking to people, and I find that has a lot more information in it than the few sentences that are written down. And that's just I get the understanding and the intent rather than the specifics. And then obviously if I come across something that I think is wrong, then I'll go and look at the specifics and say, oh yeah, they didn't want it to reset.
So I started at a company that was genuinely waterfall. This was 2011 when I started testing with them. But they were truly waterfall. And I did read requirements documents. And these were requirements documents that were sometimes 45, 50 pages long. And what's wild is the very first project, like very first feature that I was doing on my own, I read the document as the very first requirements document that I read that wasn't just like a one pager, we're changing this minor thing. And it finally went into production the week that I left the company 3 years later. But it going into production was a huge problem because it was a social media plugin for the tool. And everything had changed in how Twitter and Facebook worked between when that was written and when it went live, which of course we know, like, you know, things change and that's why waterfall is bad. But yeah, it was really eye-opening when my next job was Agile. And I was like, wait, this will be done in 2 weeks? Are you serious?
There are some software development that waterfall suits.
Yeah. No, there are places where it belongs.
Yep.
SaaS is not one of them.
No. Things with rapidly changing requirements is not one of those places. And it sounds like that's where you were.
Yeah.
I was in telecom. It worked fairly well.
Yeah.
Agile worked okay too, but I started in waterfall and it was fine.
Banking for me.
Yeah. Also very good at waterfall.
It's interesting that both of you have these things that are really logical. You know, like it makes sense that creative thinking would be really valuable, and you would get that from music and kind of the analytical problem solving and things like that. What I actually like really reflecting, I've been reflecting on this a lot in the past 6 months or so because of other things. I think that I learned a new level of empathy from customer service jobs that I've applied to testing that I don't know that I would have gotten that deep in kind of relating to the user had I not done the kinds of things that I did. Like I worked for a company that did Medicare Part D, which is medication for seniors. You know, so I had to help the pharmacies troubleshoot. Well, pharmacists aren't always the most tech savvy. When you're talking to some of the more seasoned pharmacists, maybe that's the best way to put it.
You can say old. You can say old. We don't mind. Us olds don't mind being called old.
Well, but also trying to communicate really genuinely technical information to some of the seniors about why their medication was denied, how they can get it approved, the steps they need to take, and make that understandable for them. I've carried that over into testing probably more than anything else. And it's wild because that was the worst job I ever had, was doing that job. But it probably taught me more than I want to admit. Everybody should have to do something like that once in their career. It should be like an active public service. You have to do it for like 6 months.
So when I started at Newbridge, I was hired on a 3-month contract doing testing. And then they wanted to keep me on, but there was no open testing job. So I got a 3rd level support, phone support. And so I was the last step before the developer. And for the product we had, our levels 1 and 2 were essentially, oh, you have that product? Hold on, let me patch it through to our team. We were all levels of customer support. And in that very enjoyable 6 months that I was in that role, I did learn that the pain that not just your customers feel, but as a result of your customers feeling that pain, your own employees having to say the same, well, to change your password, I know it's not intuitive, but let me go through the steps with you. Just make it intuitive. It's not hard. So, and something that has ended up being very beneficial, again, having been doing this for so long, is what gets that type of thing fixed is being able to put a dollar value on it. So as an example, if your customer support people are spending 10 times a day, 5 minutes with a customer, the person in charge might say, it's only 5 minutes. It's not that big a deal. But if each one is doing it 10 times a day, that's close to an hour a day per customer service rep. And if you put if you have 10 customer service people, you're now looking at 10 hours a day. That's over one person. Your entire salary of one customer support is spent just doing this. Well, if you made this one change that would take less than a sprint to do, you would save all of that time and money. It's being able to switch it for the business rule, and your customer support people are way less irritable that way. Or they should be. They may not be. They might just be irritable people because they're in customer support.
For me, the empathy has come from two different places. One was while practicing law. The junior associates were given all of the child in need of care cases.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Fun.
But finding people who's, were dealing with separation from partner and from child, and trying to help reunite families, taught me a lot of empathy for people who were wildly different from me. But then the other thing is 1-800-CONTACTS takes its bugs very seriously. Like we have this whole system where our customer service agents submit these bugs, and they immediately get triaged and looked at, and we look for customer pain, and we fix it more often than not. And I'm not sure other companies do this based on but the way that we treat our customers and our customer service agents, our call center, is really, really wonderful. And it's made me a lot more sensitive to customer pain and helping solve that.
That's a really admirable thing in the way you all handle defects, especially because, and this goes back to your keynote from RTC, when you're dealing with things like anything medical, like ordering your contacts. Well, I would assume so. I don't wear contacts, but ordering my glasses is the same way. There's a lot of stress there. How much is it going to cost? Is my prescription up to date? Am I out of fills according to my insurance? All of those things cause stress. And so the more difficult it is to use, as you mentioned in your keynote, the worse it makes it for them. So that's really cool. I like that you all do that.
Jenna, you said RTC without expanding on what that is.
I'm sorry, you're right. Romanian Testing Conference, which
that sounds like a great conference. I bet you the program chairs this year were amazing.
I think the program chairs were pretty darn good, but so were the keynote. If you all didn't guess, Paul and I were program chairs, and Rachel was a keynote.
The best keynote.
Aw, it was very, very good. Very good. There's another keynote that was very, very good that everybody has the chance to see at Agile Testing Days. Rachel, are you, by the way, even though we're not doing wrapping up yet, but are you doing yours anywhere else again this year?
No, I am going to record it. As man, I know this sounds super pretentious, but I am going to record it as my gift to the software testing community, because
that is a true gift. And I know 90% of what I say is sarcasm. That was not. The reason I saw a much earlier version of that keynote at Agile Testing Days USA in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, 2019.
The first year is in Chicago. And it really stuck with me. I'd been at the time teaching not teaching, but it was one of the few conference talks that I'd been to probably in 10 years that I actually learned something that I hadn't thought of before. So I'm not going to spoil it because I want everyone to actually watch the whole keynote and not just hear one or two summary sentences. But I was so struck by it that was why Jenna and I asked Rachel to keynote at the Romanian testing conference, and it was nicely updated and a fantastic addition. So I am looking forward to seeing that. Are you going to put on YouTube?
Yes. Yep. It'll
Nice.
be on my channel, and I'll put it on LinkedIn when it's up.
And some more conferences should consider bringing Rachel in to do that talk. It was very, very good.
Thanks.
Yes.
So I got us all off track for a minute, though.
You did.
I want to pull us back because we talked a bit about kind of what we brought in from our previous careers early in our career. But I'm curious, what are the big skills for the future? What do you think, especially our early career folks, need to be thinking about in terms of what happens next in their career, in terms of like what they need to learn?
I know this is so the basic skills that are taught like through black box software testing courses, BBST courses, as offered by the Association for Software Testing and some other companies, those will always be important. They teach critical thinking and
Bug
test
advocacy,
design, bug
testing,
advocacy.
test techniques.
Yeah, those things are always going to be important. I know it sounds trite and I know it's oft repeated, but people who use AI effectively are just going to do better in their careers than people who are not using AI at all. Someone who already knows how to do the job, but then can also use AI effectively to enhance their role, they're just going to win out. And so effective prompt engineering, as much as some of us hate that term, effective use of AI for like defect clustering and things like that, it's going to be helpful. Paul, you look like you're going to disagree with me.
I'm going to disagree with you. Yes, it will help some people, just like learning how to code will help some people. Being able to code can be beneficial. It can also be detrimental if it makes you start thinking like a developer instead of like a tester. Becoming good at using AI could, just like learning to code could make you a worse tester, learning AI could actually make you a worse tester as well. So all of it comes down to you need the critical thinking. And you also, with working with AI, you need to be 100% aware all the time that artificial intelligence has zero intelligence. It does not know what it's saying. It doesn't understand the model. It doesn't understand the world. All it is providing is something that it thinks looks like it could be a correct answer based on the other shit, it has learned online. If it's regurgitating something exactly what it found online, which has happened a few times recently and gotten people in trouble, but the closer you are to the origination of what it learned, better your answer will likely be. If you're doing something new, and most software development, I would hope, is doing something new, the more it's divergent, the more it's not similar to anything else that the AI has learned, the more useless AI is going to be. And it still speaks with the same confidence because that's the language that it was taught to speak with. So it's going to confidently tell you an answer that is completely and utterly wrong. And you have to keep critical thinking when you're using AI, because AI, as I said, doesn't understand anything that it's telling you. It just looks like it could be right. And as a result, it's confidently telling you crap most of the time. Now, that crap can be incredibly helpful and insightful to give you good ideas, just like when you're brainstorming and somebody says an answer that's a joke or that's completely off topic. It can make you say, oh my God, that was so wrong, but it made me think of this other thing that is a good idea. That's, in my mind, what AI can be very helpful for. Yes, it can give you legitimate good ideas, but you never know if they're a good idea or not without looking at them, analyzing, and using it critically. but it can also give you horrific ideas that can also promote good ideas. The obviously wrong answers, in my mind, are less concerning than the subtly wrong answers because they look more correct. That, to me, is the biggest concern. The one thing that I'm hopeful for right now is the, oh my God, it's AI, seems to be diminishing a little bit right now. Yes, it's become commonplace. We went from very little commonly used AI to quite a lot. We've also found a lot of companies that had started to move away from testers and replacing them all with AI or saying, whoa, this was the wrong thing to do. Let's do a good combination of both. And I feel we're starting to head in a good direction of being able to use AI responsibly and less blindly. So I didn't fully disagree with you, Rachel. You just need to be super cautious when you're using AI.
You have a lot of feelings about that, don't you, Paul?
I do, because it's dangerous as hell and people don't realize it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of companies, and I will not name any, but there are a lot of companies out there who lie so much in their marketing as to what their software can do for you. We use AI. We'll be able to write your test cases. We'll be able to replace your testers. We'll be able, and I'm not saying they have these verbatim as their marketing, but there's so much misleading marketing because it's challenging enough to get AI tools to be able to work, let alone to work effectively. And yes, prompt engineering and just getting ideas from AI, that's great. I have no problem with that at all. I have a huge problem with misleading marketing. It falls into the same category from 10 years ago of outsourcing your testing or learning how to do code or whatever. The marketing is the problem, not the content or not the intention. Well, Tariq King is fully aware as to what automation can do and what it can, not automation, AI can do and can't do. As a result, when he speaks about artificial intelligence, it's with the boundaries of what it can do, and there's no false promises, which is why I love hearing his talks and his workshops. But then you go around the vendor booths and it's very disconcerting what they claim. And I have yet to see one company come anywhere close to what they claim they can do using their artificial intelligence. There might be one out. I just haven't seen it.
I don't want to get us too far off topic, but I think something that's really relevant when it comes to maybe over-promising on what someone's AI can do, what a company's AI can do. This is not meant to offend anyone, but financing right now is so heavy into the AI craze, and it's really damaging kind of credibility of businesses because they have to overstate it to raise money. I think in the long term it's just going to hurt the industry, especially when it comes to testing tools, because the rhetoric is wrong.
Exactly. And it's like every other tool that come along in the past that can help. It's marketed in a way that says it will solve all your problems or more of your problems than it can easily. And as a result, and this has happened throughout my entire career. There's always something, the next big shiny thing, and somebody very high up get convinced to buy it, and now they've spent lots and lots of money on it, and now the people, us, the testers, are being told, here's your new tool, you have to use it. Well, you didn't consult me, and I don't think this tool is going to help. You got to use it. You got to use it. And so they try to use it. And if they dare complain that it's not working, then they'll get replaced with somebody who will say it's working. So there's a lot of that sort of peer pressure. It's leadership pressure that we've spent a lot of money on this. We need this to work. You have to make it work. And that's an unfortunate position to put your employees in. So please, if you're a senior, don't go buying tools without talking to the people who know better.
So, Paul, what are your skills of the future? You just argued with mine. Give me something to argue with.
You need to be able to speak Mandarin. Actually, that would honestly probably help, but I would have zero chance of speaking a tonal language, I'm sure. Let's see.
Do you want a minute to
No, I'm just going to say being able to, I will agree with you, and being able to use AI responsibly will likely make your job better. But it's going to be nothing I can't foresee it in the near term. So let's say the next 10 years, I can't foresee it coming anywhere close to what the tool vendors are saying it can do. But being able to use it as idea generation or helping you write your reports or whatever, I can see it helping for sure with that. It would be really swell if people stopped using it to submit abstracts for talks, because there's an awful lot of words that aren't super common that get used way too much by AI, and you look at it and you go, nobody actually really speaks this way. Where did you learn this wording? Now, that being said, again, if you're the editor and you're a diligent editor, you can take the concepts and tweak them and make them sound a lot better. Critical thinking. So the skills of the future are to be able to do what AI can't. Being able to understand the product from end to end, learn the aspects of it, learn the vulnerabilities and the strengths of your product, being able to think critically about new features and creatively about how you would test them or how they might need to change before you test them, being able to report on what you have found and what you've tested on. Yes, AI can generate a report, but there's no useful information. It's just like your red, green. Oh, I have a pass rate of 90%. What the hell does that mean? It doesn't tell me. I need to be able, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what can become useful though in those AI generated reports is if we give enough context and enough information, we can use AI for what it's really intended to do, which is to find the unexpected connections, the unexpected overlaps, to really do statistical analysis. But the reports have to be developed in a way, and we have to give it enough information to be able to do that. And really, we're talking about using things like neural nets to be able to do that. Unfortunately, Paul's internet has been a little bit unstable, so we may have lost him. So you won't get to argue with him.
Bummer. No, I agree with what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too. I think that as with anything else in testing, context is critical. And
right.
I guess because as a researcher, I do a lot of statistical analysis. I've found the real value in quality in gives me quality out versus garbage in gives me garbage out. So I'm seeing more value in AI analysis than I used to, but I also understand that there's still a lot of legwork on the front end to give me something decent on the back end. I do actually have kind of a divergent skill though from what you both have mentioned as kind of a skill for the future. I think that just like with everything else in tech, we're seeing a lot of specialization. I don't think testers have to specialize, but I do think that you need to enhance your enough about another discipline to be able to collaborate in a way that other people can't. So like I've really added a lot of experience in UX to my toolkit. And that sets me apart from others because I'm able to work with designers in a way that even developers can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives me something really unique. And I think that testers who decide to go heavy into things like DevOps and be able to work really hand in hand with DevOps teams, or to even be able to do more troubleshooting with developers than the average person can, like the average tester or even the average dev can, that makes you unique and really stand out in a really difficult job market.
That's a fantastic point. I think being a cross-functional tester is, that's absolutely important for everyone to find their way of being able to. I call it I call the role that I built a Rachel shaped job. Mm-hmm. It's not just a testing shaped job. It's all the stuff that I do. And I think we're not cogs, and trying to treat ourselves like cogs is a poor way to approach our jobs, when we can find something that uses all of our skills, and creating our own shape job is what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think we've been losing that with the push to, you have to learn AI and you have to learn automation, you have to code. And so testers who maybe don't even enjoy coding, like I don't like coding, are pushing themselves to do something that makes their career and their job less enjoyable, just so that they can fit into the round hole that they weren't meant to be in. Versus maybe they have a super security mindset and should add more of that to be able to collaborate more with like a security team, versus getting, heavy into code, whatever it might be. Ashley's conversation about job crafting has had me thinking about this.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I know that we lost Paul, so we don't get to use Paul to help us wrap up. But I did want to see if you have any like last thoughts to share.
I think software testing is a fantastic space to be in now. And I think it's going to be a fantastic space, a really interesting space to be in for the next 20 years. So if you're looking for a career in tech, this is a place to start. And it's a place where you can find home too, not just a place to start. There are so many skills, but just having a good head on your shoulders and having good critical thinking skills will get you in the door. And then you can find your place.
I agree. And by the way, where can people see you the rest of the year?
Let's see. So I'll be at PNSQC, Pacific Northwest Software Quality Conference, in October, doing a workshop on getting started with AI and software testing. And also doing a talk about the mistakes that I made and the lessons that I learned in training new software testers, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Then I'll be at Testing United in Vienna at the beginning of November, giving a keynote about AI, the good, the bad, and the bias.
Ooh.
And then I'll be at Agile Testing Days in Potsdam in late November, performing in a musical about software testing. It's going to be wild. And also giving a talk about leading as an individual contributor.
Nice.
Yeah.
So at least I get to see you at Agile Testing Days.
Yes, that'll be a great time.
Yeah.
And you're giving a keynote there, right?
I am. I'm giving a keynote called Testing Identity and Symbols. And yeah, everybody's in for an experience.
Awesome.
It will bookend Ashley's talk very well, so it's going to be interesting. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and taking part in this, and arguing it out with Paul.
Thank you for having me. It's always so much fun.
We have Paul again. Paul, we were just wrapping up. Do you want to share any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I didn't hear what Rachel's final thoughts were, so I don't want to say the exact same thing as she did. Oh, no.
Critical thinking.
Anyway. Critical thinking? Yes. Critical thinking, judicious use of artificial intelligence, good communication skills, problem solving. If you see something that needs to be fixed or something that isn't working, do something about it. Don't just accept it. Don't have, I can't remember the term. It's essentially a term where you just accept it. This is how we've always done it. I'm just going to, I have to create this document. I have to do what everybody's doing.
A fixed mindset?
Pardon?
Fixed mindset versus growth mindset, maybe?
Complacency?
No, it's something compliance.
Oh.
It doesn't matter. It's essentially, it just means you're uncritically thinking about it and you're just doing it because it's part of your process. If instead you challenge it and say, why am I doing this? I once at Alcatel there was a document. It was a 400-page document. It was a behemoth for useless. It was a document that nobody needed, nobody wanted, but it was part of our process. And it took like a week to create it and review it. And so I said, I'm not going to create this. It's a waste of time. Nobody's asked for it for the last 3 releases. And they said, well, it's part of our process. And so the VP was saying, no, we have to do it because otherwise we would need to do an exception. And I said, tell you what, if a customer asks for it, I promise I'll give it to you within 2 weeks. And he said, oh, okay, cool. And we filled in an exception and eventually got it taken out because nobody ever asked for it. It was a useless document that somebody ages ago had said, oh, if we need this, we better have it ready. And so they wasted all this time. And so if you see something that's wasteful, if you see something that's not working, if you see something that should be better, try to make it better. Try to find, especially if you can come up with a business case for it, like how it would save the company money or have lower turnover or create more opportunities, be able to find better bugs, anything like that. And the big thing is try to do the things that automation and artificial intelligence can't. Be a human tester. Don't do things that can be replaced. If you're executing detailed scripts that could be automated, automate them and do better testing on your own time. Don't do the things that can be replaced.
I like
There
that.
you go.
And Paul, where can people see you the rest of the year?
I only have one other conference this year, which is Agile Testing Days in November in Germany.
Awesome.
I think somebody else on this call might be there too.
We'll all be there.
All of us.
Yeah.
You coming to the musical?
I'll come to the musical.
You coming to my
And I'm so thankful that you're not asking me to sing in the musical. I appreciate that.
I think we're all kind of thankful for that.
Yeah, understandably, if you've heard me sing, it's, yeah. And am I coming to what, Jenna? Your
keynote?
talk? If it's a keynote, I'm always there. I always go to all the keynotes.
You can skip my
Looking
workshop,
forward to
but
it.
you have to come to the keynote.
Are you coming to my keynote?
Yeah, I go to all the keynotes.
Okay. Mine's on the first night, though. It's kind of...
Ooh, I get to heckle you.
Yep.
I want to thank you both so much for joining me on the Testers Table. This was awesome. This was a great conversation. And I will see you both in November.
Looking forward
Thanks,
to it.
Jenna.
Thanks, Jenna.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye, Jenna.